Hi, my name is Jean Lee. I am a journalist and a global fellow with the Wilson Center based in Washington, D.C., but I am speaking to you today from Seoul, South Korea. Here in South Korea, we are on the second day of joint military exercises called Uchi Freedom Guardian. We've got more than 20,000 U.S. troops and tens of thousands of South Korean troops, as well as military personnel from some of the countries that supported the U.S.-led UN command during the Korean War. They're taking part in computer-simulated military drills, which the U.S. insists are defensive in nature to prevent or prepare in the case of some sort of aggression from North Korea. Now, North Korea calls these annual drills, they're held twice a year, rehearsal for invasion, and for that reason, August is always a very tense time on the Korean Peninsula. Certainly, militaries in the region are bracing for any kind of provocation. It's been a particularly provocative year in terms of North Korea's testing of ballistic missiles. As you may know, North Korea tested 2 intercontinental ballistic missiles in July. These are long-range missiles that are designed specifically to strike U.S. territory and specifically the mainland U.S. Now, if they can get a nuclear warhead on one of these devices, they will be certainly a major threat to global security. And for that reason, we are hearing all kinds of rhetoric with countries, including the President of the United States, trying to warn North Korea that any kind of further provocation would be met with fire and fury. Now, I will remind you that North Korea has reacted to tensions in these military drills in the past. Last September, perhaps in reaction to the joint military drills, they did conduct a nuclear test. This was the 5th nuclear test conducted by North Korea, and there's certainly concerns that North Korea may try to test another nuclear device, and North Korea would need to test another nuclear device in order to get that warhead small enough to mount on one of these ballistic missiles. I do want to remind you that all of this, including the military drills, are a reminder that the Korean War never technically ended. The two sides signed a ceasefire to stop the fighting in 1953, but they never signed a peace treaty. And so this very fragile truce has really been keeping the peace since 1953, and we certainly see flare-ups from time to time as a result of the failure to sign a peace treaty to formally end the Korean War. Now, in the United States, we call the Korean War the Forgotten War. It was a war that was fought very far from U.S. shores, and because it was so painful to the troops involved, it was perhaps a war that they wanted to forget. However, I should tell you that the North Koreans have not forgotten the war. The standoff with the U.S. is an integral part of their national psyche and their national identity. North Korea very deliberately maintains a wartime mentality. This is one way that the regime can keep its people together and enforce a sense of unity. And this is something that's very important to keep in mind. Leader Kim Jong-Un in particular is using the war and the standoff with the U.S. to reinforce his place at the top of the hierarchy. Now, he is a young man. He took power 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, when he was still in his 20s, so he still has a lot to prove. And one thing that he's keen to prove to his people is that he can defend them against the United States. And what he wants to prove again is that he can get the United States to treat North Korea, a very small and poor country, as an equal. So we will see where these tensions lead. Certainly here in South Korea, there are a lot of concerns that the rhetoric might be amped up to a point where somebody might make a move. One of these tens of thousands of troops poised to fire, poised to strike, will feel compelled to make a move, and that would be a disaster for the region, and that's not something that anyone wants. Now, China is a major player in all of this. China does not want another disaster on its doorstep. So we are seeing a very complicated dance between the U.S. and China in trying to rein in North Korea, and another complicated dance between North Korea and China as China tries to put some pressure on North Korea without causing North Korea's collapse. Where things go from here, well, we shall see. I think that there are some major shifts in the region in terms of messaging and the alliance. We've got a new president here in South Korea. President Moon is a child of the Korean War. His parents were refugees from the Korean War, so he does have the future security of the peninsula in mind, as well as the prosperity of the North Korean people. So his stance has been to support the U.S. in its push for maximum pressure in terms of sanctions, but he also wants to see dialogue and engagement as a way forward, as a way to resolve the security issue here on the Korean Peninsula. So we'll see how he is able to manage the messaging coming out of Washington and able to perhaps calm tensions to the point where they can perhaps reach out to North Korea. So I hope that sheds a little bit of light on how we see things here in South Korea when it comes to the North Korean threat and tensions here on the Korean Peninsula. Thank you very much.